All right, folks. Welcome back to part 2 of my series on Abscam.
I'm impressed that you fit it into 2 episodes, but I'm also excited. I feel like it's been too long since we've heard part 1, and I'm ready to know how all of this ends.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what even happened? Well, if you forgot, which I almost forgot, Abscam is the FBI sting operation that happened in the late 1970s that led to the conviction of one U.S. senator and many more. Not U.S. senators, but other elected officials.
She's Sarah.
She's Harley, and we're gaveling in another session of Crime in Congress. So, for those who maybe need a rejogger here, rejogger, is that a word?
I don't think so.
Okay, refresher. That's
There
what I
you
was
go.
going for.
Jog your memory, refresh.
Yeah.
I
was
rejogger.
combining. Sometimes we just need a rejogger. TM, copyright. So we left right after the former con man turned FBI informant and government crook extraordinaire, Mel Weinberg, led the FBI in throwing a yacht party in southern Florida that lent credibility to their sting operation. As you might remember, the idea of the scheme centered around 2 fictitious Arab emirs, Abdul and Yasser Habib, who wanted to get their mountains of wealth out of the Middle East and into the United States. Mel and a team of FBI agents, namely FBI agent Anthony Amoroso, posed as the emir's staff at the fake firm Abdul Enterprises, who managed his billions and billions of dollars in investments in the U.S. So what had originally started as a low-priority series of sting operations to go after white-collar crime had now blown up and had led them to uncover widespread political corruption in the New Jersey Democratic Party. I actually have, I learned some intel. I'm not sure if I don't know how credible it is, but I heard now that people don't like being referred to as Democrats. They like being referred to as Democratic members.
Interesting.
Is that, I'm not sure if that's true. I've asked my friends and I've heard mixed reviews, but I met one person who was very adamant and was very offended when someone in the group said Democrat.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. But already through the sting operation, they had successfully bribed the mayor of Camden, New Jersey, Angelo Joseph Ericetti, and now the team was meticulously infiltrating his network of elected official friends who also could be bought. So this brings us to Erincetti's friend and another elected official that Ericetti brought with him to the yacht party, Senator Harrison Williams, senior senator from the state of New Jersey. Now, up until this point in the investigation, the same men from the FBI had been overseeing the case. However, as the operation extended deeper into New Jersey, the Justice Department had demanded that the FBI coordinate with U.S. Attorney Robert J. Del Tufo in Newark. Immediately, Tufo and his aides had a hostile attitude towards the investigation. You see, Tufo was a Democrat and
Democratic. Democratic member.
Please. But he had also been nominated for his post by Senator Williams.
Who was a target of the investigation?
Yes, correct. Erincetti's friend who went to the yacht party, that guy. So more on that later, but I wanted to go ahead and just get that out there. So another note about the Democratic Party of New Jersey at the time was that it had deep mob connections.
Oh?
Yeah. An indicator of this mob connection was the business partner of Senator Williams, George Katz. He was a New Jersey garbage contractor. This is so New Jersey. I love it so much. But he had become a millionaire through corrupt deals with New Jersey Democratic officials for years and had also been known as a bagman for corrupt officials. Katz was also a close friend of a leading figure of La Cosa Nostra, a.k.a. the collection of Italian-American organized crime families, a.k.a. the mob, if you weren't aware. Through Katz and Mayor Ericetti, the Abscam team did some really good investigation work on the mob's inner workings as it pertains to bookkeeping. But I left most of those details out since this is Crime in Congress. But as I said last episode, if you want to learn more, go read The Sting Man by Robert W. Greene. That's the book I read for this.
I need to read it. It sounds really good.
You should. Anyways, last episode, you might remember I talked about this idea of insulation as well, which is the idea that Mel and the FBI had to ensure that the bribes were passed straight to the elected officials, not the frontmen, who were this quote-unquote insulation. So you might remember Senator Williams' frontman was lawyer Alexander Feinberg. The senator also had further insulation through his friend, Henry Williams, no relation, and George Katz, the garbage contractor. Together, these men wanted to work out a deal to purchase a Virginia titanium mine and processing plant, as well as another processing plant in Savannah, Georgia. But the deals were less than above board.
Of course they were.
Right. So on paper, Henry Williams and George Katz were the principals, but lawyer Feinberg and Senator Williams had their shares, but in secret.
Okay. They were like silent partners?
Yeah. The four men proposed that Abdul Enterprises' team loan them $100 million to fund the titanium mine venture.
Just a cool 100 million,
Yeah.
casual.
I mean, chump change to the emir, right? So they claimed this deal would give them a virtual monopoly on titanium within the United States. The deal looked profitable because the U.S. government needed titanium to build submarines, Navy ships, and other defense projects. In putting the pieces together, the Abscam team realized that Senator Williams wanted to keep his interests secret because part of his deal involved using his influence within the Senate to get the company defense contracts.
AKA corruption.
AKA corruption. The problem was now twofold from a legal perspective. They needed to prove Senator Williams' interest, and they had to prove that the senator would use his influence on the government. Mel, like always, had an idea to form a new corporation to handle the mine venture, and FBI agent John Good approved. So Mel called up Feinberg and told him that Yazir the Emir would give this new corporation $100 million to buy the mine and the processing plants. If the loan came through, the senator, Feinberg, Henry Williams, Araschetti, and Katz would each own a $17 million share. The senator, of course, would not declare these shares publicly. However, though, this loan would only go through if the deal was approved by Mel and Agent Amoroso. Again, going by the alias of Tony DeVito right now. The price of their approval was a piece of the pie for himself and Amorosa.
I think that makes sense, but why cut in the mayor?
So it was actually kind of genius because with millions of dollars on the line, the mayor was working overtime to convince Feinberg and Williams that they should go through with the deal.
Okay.
And also, with the mayor involved, it looked like everyone in the deal, except for the senator, had earned their shares. The mayor had introduced the group to the Abdul Yazir folks. Henry Williams and Katz had put together the initial package, and Feinberg was doing the legal work. This set the stage for Mel to then ask Senator Williams to assure the team verbally that he would use his influence for government contracts and keep his side of the bargain.
Were they recording this?
They record everything.
Okay.
Sometimes the recorder works, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
But it proved pretty difficult to get Senator Williams on the hook. In the multiple meetings they had with him, he would normally let Feinberg do all the talking. But finally, after a lot of behind-the-scenes phone calls from Mel to the mayor, it was decided that they would make the deal happen, and that Senator Williams himself would give personal assurance to Yazir himself that he would make the contracts happen. A meeting on June 28, 1979 at the Marriott Hotel in Arlington, Virginia was set. And in an effort to protect the senator, Mel said that the meeting would only involve Yazir, the senator, Amorosa, and Araschetti. The same FBI agent who had played Yazir at the yacht was flown in once more, and like in Florida, he would pretend that he could understand English but could not speak it well. That way, Amorosa, the agent fully briefed, would do the most talking.
Oh, that's really smart.
Yeah, right? Mel and the mayor, for that matter, were very concerned that the senator would mess the meeting up. The mayor had done multiple briefings with the senator telling him what to say and how to sell the idea that the senator was the man to make the government contracts happen. Mel was still worried, though, and even told the senator upon meeting him in the hotel before his meeting that, and I'm just going to read this, Yazir is only interested in you. You got to tell him how important you are, who you are, and what you can do. And you got to tell him in no uncertain terms. Without me, there's no deal. I'm the man. I'm the man who's going to open doors. I'm the man who's going to do this and use my influence, and I guarantee this. Follow me? All bullshit. End quote. This little pep talk, though, before the meeting would end up being a little problematic as legal experts rang the alarms for entrapment. But again, more on that later.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that.
Little murky there. But anyways, in the meeting, the senator really did not skip a beat. Here's the conversation that ensued when Agent Amoroso asked how the senator would specifically use his power. Okay, so this is Ericetti talking first, the mayor. Well, without the senator, there is no, forget it, there's no mines and nothing. The senator had the know-how in his position as a United States senator. You're what, chairman of the labor? Senator Williams. Yes, I've been there for decades. And in that position, you come up with these positions and you work with the people that make the decisions. Agent Amoroso / Tony DeVito. Right. The senator. Very close to them. Very close. I just completely believe in this one. This whole situation we've presented through the mine. And with great pleasure, I'll talk to the President of the United States about it. And, in a personal way. And get him as enthusiastic and excited because we know what our country needs.
So he's promising to get the president involved and supportive of this project.
Yep. So got him.
Wow.
And as I said, this was all on camera and audio recorded and everything worked that day.
Yikes.
Yeah. So things are going pretty well. However, things were not always smooth sailing because a week after this meeting on July 6th, the Abscam team ran into a major scare when the mayor called up Mel and asked for an urgent meeting at Kennedy Airport. Apparently, a Florida swindler who had visited Atlantic City casino manager Tony Tacasso after a meeting with him at the yacht party, he told the manager that he had been serving as an informant for the Miami FBI, and he was smuggled on the boat to pick up information that night. The swindler also told the manager that the entire yacht party itself was a scheme and that Tony DeVito, or Agent Amoroso, was in on it.
Why would he say all of that?
Luckily, Mel's fast thinking and long-term strategy of blinding the mayor with his greediness prevailed. He told the mayor that he had known Tony for years and that the swindler was probably just telling tall tales to scam the casino manager. Once again, Mayor Ericetti bought it.
He is easily convinced. I mean, not to discredit Mel's ability.
But totally. Yeah. You're like, be so for real.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
Come on.
Anyways, now that they had assurances from the senator, the FBI now needed to prove that the senator had actually gotten his share of the stocks, right? So actually had received, quote unquote, the bribe. So Mel concocted a story and relayed to the mayor that a second Arab group who believed the Titanium Mine Corporation was already in operation wanted to purchase it at a $50 million profit. So, once the Yazir loan came in, Mel and company would sell off the corporation to the other Arab group. Yazir, Mel said, would not know, and the money from the sale would be split between the mayor and the rest of the men in the deal, including the senator. And again, wanting to get his cut of the money faster, Ericetti relayed to the senator that he needed to accept his shares in person directly. So, on July 11th, 1979, Mel, Amoroso, and Ericetti met with the senator at the Northwest Airlines Lounge at Kennedy Airport to give him his shares. In the meeting, the senator admitted that he had already been using his power for the benefit of their corporation. Once again, gotcha.
How do you, physically hand someone shares of a company?
That's a good question, I guess.
Is it like the deed to a house? Like you have... Clearly we own a lot of stock between the two of us.
Yeah, clearly. Okay, here are the actual details. So Mel gave Tim his unsigned shares representing an interest in $17 million in the new corporation. So yeah, I guess it was like...
a stock certificate.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Okay, problem solved, everyone. Sorry.
This is critical to the plot.
Yeah, not some details I just don't insert, I guess.
So as you can tell, neither Sarah nor I were very impacted by the tariffs recently.
Yeah. We're like, okay, yeah.
We came out fine.
Technically, I think my retirement.
Oh, yeah, we're just not going to look at that.
But,
it's fake money.
Yeah.
Right now it is.
As a matter of me. Anyways. So around this time, the FBI supervisor, John Good, told Mel that since many of the names on the tape were, again, Democratic officials from New Jersey, the U.S. attorney in Newark, Del Tufo, wanted Mel to come and work mainly for him. Mel refused, though, because he did not trust Del Tufo. And in response to this and their growing frustration with the investigation, Del Tufo's assistant, Ed Plaza, would pen an angry letter directly to the Attorney General. Just going to throw it in there. just want to throw in kind of the behind the scenes tensions that are there, right? So like this is when Jimmy Carter's president. So there is some back channeling from this into the DC people. But ultimately it doesn't really like matter too much.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, in August, Mel and Omarosa were ambushed at a meeting that was supposedly with a casino builder, but actually ended up being Ed Plaza and Robert Wire Jr. from Del Tuvo's office. They had listened to the tapes at the Marriott Hotel and were outraged by Mel's little pep talk to the senator before the meeting with the fake Amir.
Understandably.
Yeah. Now, meanwhile, at the Justice Department, officials were also getting antsy about the Abscam operation. Senator Williams was tight with Senator Ted Kennedy, who was also going to primary President Jimmy Carter, and politically, they needed Senator Williams' support. The message passed down was that the case against Senator Williams needed to be bulletproof.
You kind of do need to have a bulletproof case if you're going to go after a public figure.
Yeah. Well, someone said one of these quotes recently that was like, if you try to kill a king, like, you best be able to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's kind of what they're thinking as well. So once again, Mel and the team set up a meeting with Senator Williams and the other partners on September 11th at the Hilton Inn at the Kennedy Airport. So Mel told the group that the second Arab group had upped their offer on the condition that the senator keep his 18% interest in the corporation after the group bought it, and that he would keep the interest at no cost, again, if he used his influence. In that meeting, the senator once again agreed to the terms. But again, the Justice Department wanted even more proof. So Mel told Araschetti that a second Arab group wanted to buy the senator's agreement in writing. They wanted the senator's agreement in writing. However, this ended up being a buzz because the mayor just decided to forge the letter and signature. And Mel couldn't really say anything, because he's supposed to be a con man too.
Right. He can't just choose this 1 minute to have morals.
Yeah, exactly. But no fear, because by fall, the senator and Feinberg had a meeting with Mel and Omarosa at the Plaza Hotel, where the senator proposed that Yazir send through another $70 million construction loan for the Ritz Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. In that meeting, the senator even said that he knew the casino license would go through no problem because his meeting with the Casino Control Commission, the chairman of which, Kenneth MacDonald, had already been successfully bribed by the Abscam crew. The senator sealed the deal and his eventual conviction on January 15th, 1980, just 2 weeks before the Abscam operation ended. Senator Williams, Katz, and Feinberg met with Omarosa and the same FBI agent from before playing Yazir in a suite in the Plaza Hotel.
You always pick the cases with the most characters.
I know. Yeah, sorry. Let me know if it's confusing. But this time around, it was decided that Yazir had been learning English and could ask some questions directly to the senator. In this meeting, Yazir told the senator that he was looking to come and live in the U.S. in the near future and asked him if he could guide legislation to give him permanent status of citizenship. Yazir would even pay for the legislation. The senator, wanting the loan money for the casino to go through, insisted that he would personally shepherd that legislation through Congress at no cost. So, they got him pretty good.
Although they didn't get him to accept the money for it.
Yes, for not that one. Mm-hmm. But again, the casino loan was good enough. Now, we're going to backtrack a little bit at this point because running parallel to this Senator Williams operation, Mel and the FBI were also making progress to bust other elected officials. And this is really where we're going to ramp up the number of people that end up getting convicted. Basically, a lot of names are going to start throwing you. So stop me at any point if I am making no sense.
Okay.
So, for example, Alfred Carpenter, a Long Island businessman, had attended the yacht party at the invitation of Mel. Carpenter would later boast that he could provide passports and green cards for aliens by calling upon the services of Alexander A. Alexandro Jr., quite the name, that is his real name, who worked for the Immigration and Naturalization Service. The FBI wanted Mel and the company to pursue the lead. They came up with the story that they would ask Carpenter and Alexandro. What do we like better? Alexandro. Anyways, they would ask him to obtain a green card for an Irish alien, Thomas Foley, as a favor to the Emir, who was allegedly a friend of Foley's father. Alexandro did above and beyond, coming up with a plan on how to get Foley a green card. His solution was marriage, and Alexandro would even find a woman and take care of all the blood tests.
Blood tests?
Yep, making sure we are above board here.
I didn't know that there were blood test requirements for a green card.
No, I think it's just like making sure that the woman he provided was like clean.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes more sense.
That's what I think it is.
Ickier, but makes more sense.
Yeah. So in a videotaped conversation at the hotel at JFK Airport, Alexandro explained the plan and said that the cost of his labor would be around $15,000 in total. Agent Amoroso handed him a down payment of $2,000. In exchange, Alexandro boasted that the green card was pretty much guaranteed because he had done this before.
Ooh.
Gotcha. But here's another example. So Mel had connected Mayor Aaron Shetty to George Katz in a meeting at the Holiday Inn in Atlantic City. There, Aaron Shetty agreed to give Katz the Camden garbage collection contract, a deal that would later only cost a $2,000 loan from Katz. During that meeting, Aaron Shetty also teased an even sweeter deal to Katz. You see, the mayor was friends with the incoming Philadelphia Mayor William Green and City Council President George Schwartz. The idea here was that Abdul and Yazir could finance the waste disposal service for Philadelphia and Katz would get the garbage collection contract. Mel and the FBI agents also devised another scheme to broaden the horizons of its operation from Atlantic City. They decided the Emir would need elected officials to clear the way for a check cashing business that could wash money skimmed from the casinos or used to bribe elected officials. So this was the case for a meeting between Mel Amoroso Araschetti and New Jersey State Democratic Chairman Richard Coffey. In that meeting, Coffey said he would use his influence with the State Banking Commission to get the check cashing license. However, the FBI agents monitoring the meeting weren't sure if this was a federal crime, so they did not pay a bribe at that meeting.
Smart.
Yeah. And as I said before, not every name that came up in the investigation was acted on. For example, Katz had told Mel that the U.S. Attorney General himself, Griffin Bell, was prompted by President Carter to squash a federal income tax investigation into the Newark Mayor Kenneth Gibson. And to make this happen, Bell would transfer the case to none other than Del Tufo, where it would be quietly killed. But again, not every name that came up was followed up with a full-fledged investigation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even though in a later conversation between Mel and Gibson, the mayor seemed interested in working with the Abdul group. However, before the Abscam team could focus in on Gibson, Ed Plaza of Del Tufo's office told the group to stand down because they were going to indict Gibson on the income tax case. However, they would never return an indictment.
Interesting. Do you know why?
Nope.
Maybe they didn't have the evidence, or maybe they had to cover it up.
And maybe they were silently killing the case after all.
Interesting.
Yeah. Over the course of the investigation, another notable name came up repeatedly. That name was New Jersey Congressman Peter Rodino Jr., who rose to prominence as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, where he oversaw the 1974 impeachment hearings against President Nixon.
That's huge.
Yeah, and you might remember him from my other episodes.
Yes.
But ultimately, the Abscam team did not have enough time to chase down this lead before the operation had run its course. But I just thought it was an interesting note. Again, New Jersey guy, his name came up repeatedly, but they didn't have the juice at the end of the day to go after it.
And you said that they were really having to be picky about who they went after in the first episode.
Yeah, they had to be picky. For each person, they did a full profile on the person to see the probability that they would be involved in something like this, right? So like if they had been previously indicted or like were close to an indictment, like that's a good reason, right? I don't think Rodino had that degree of probability. And in addition, he's such a high profile character that you want rock solid evidence. And again, by the time that this investigation wasn't supposed to last that long, sting operations can't last that long because sooner or later people wise up. I mean, throughout this entire time, it's really insane that Mayor Araschetti was on the hook as long as he was because, I mean, Mel just kept on having to make up excuses why the money hadn't come through yet for, like, all these hundreds of millions of dollars that he had promised.
And these are only a few guys going after a lot of different people.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like by the time people are really starting to wise up, that's when you need to make sure the investigation is over so then you can, drop your indictments. as soon as possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you're talking about such a high profile member of Congress and his name is only popping up like halfway through the
Mm-hmm.
investigation, you're like,
Yeah.
yeah. But anyways, back to July of 1979. Mayor Edichetti, with his seemingly endless connections to corrupt officials, had introduced Mel and Agent Amoroso to Howard Crichton, a Philadelphia lawyer, and his law partner, Louis Johansson, who was also a Philadelphia councilman. This is when Agent Amoroso really started peddling the idea that Abdul and Yazir were looking to relocate to the United States to escape unrest in their country. Edichetti, of course, said he had some political connections who could make this happen. A few days later, Edichetti offered up the names of 2 Philadelphia congressmen who could be trusted with the asylum issue. Michael, nicknamed Ozzie Myers, and Raymond Lederer?
Yeah, like Letterer.
Yeah, Lederer. So Ozzie Myers fit that probability profile pretty well and was kind of just known as a rogue character. You see, less than 3 years after arriving in D.C., Myers entered a no-contest plea to a disorderly conduct charge stemming from a bar fight he had at an Arlington hotel. Witnesses reported that Myers and his friends had been celebrating his swearing in for another term in Congress. And when asked to calm down, Myers allegedly claimed he was exempt from the rules because of his congressional status.
Eye roll.
I know. And he faced assault and battery charges after reportedly punching and kicking a cashier and male security guard.
Future episode?
Yeah, future episode, right? Now, Lederer was a little bit more normal. He was born in Philly, attended Catholic schools, and then later attended St. Joseph's College of Philadelphia, Community College of Philadelphia, and Penn State as well. He worked as a probation officer and later directed the Philadelphia Probation Department, when he was elected to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives from 1974 to 1976, and then he was elected to the U.S. House in 1976. Anyways, after several conversations, Mel got Edichetti to agree that the congressmen needed to pledge in person to use their power to help Abdul and Yazir gain status and verbally agree that the bribes they were receiving in person would pay for that. Philadelphia lawyer Howard Crichton also started calling Mel a lot around this time, and it was eventually realized that Crichton was really Edichetti's point man for the members of Congress. On August 22nd, 1979, it was time for the meeting with Congressman Myers. In the meeting held at the Travel Lodge at the Kennedy Airport, I don't know why I feel the need to keep saying what airport or what hotel it was at the airport, but I do, apparently.
I didn't realize there were so many hotels at the Kennedy
Yeah.
Airport, truthfully.
So at this meeting was Mel, Amoroso, Edichetti, and Myers. And from the jump, the congressman seemed to have no qualms about what he was agreeing to. Amoroso asked Myers if he could guarantee that Yazir would have no problems getting refuge in the U.S., to which Myers said, "Well, let me say this to you. I'm going to tell you right now, without any qualms about it. With me in his corner, his chances are 100% more than they would be without somebody in his corner. But the point I'm making to you, without someone in my position, okay, you're in deep trouble. People wouldn't even want to deal with you. You got to use connections to make connections." Amoroso later. "And you are talking about a lot of money, okay?" Myers, "Tony, let me just say this to you. You're going about this the right way. I'm going to tell you something real simple and short. Money talks in this business and bullshit walks. It works the same down in Washington."
Ooh.
Yeah. So we got him.
Yeah,
These
we got
people
him
are
good.
not, yeah. And by the end of the meeting, Myers took a briefcase with $50,000 in cash. It was just too easy. The meeting with Rep. Lederer, I don't know why it trips me up. That meeting was essentially the same, with him agreeing to the terms and taking another $50,000 bribe.
See, this is the difference between the House and the Senate. They had to work the senator.
The husband was like, "Yeah, and
What next? You want me to take a briefcase full of $50,000 in cash?
Bet.
Done.
Yeah.
What's next?
Horrible legal advice. However, also around this time, Mayor Edichetti was starting to get irritable. Mel had come up with every excuse in the world of why the various Abdul Yazir loans had failed to materialize. And Mel was king with coming up with these excuses, blaming Iranian banks and stealing reasons from recent headlines, even eventually the Iran hostage crisis. It's for this reason I think that the mayor and Crichton tried to pull a fast one on Mel and Agent Amoroso. You see, Erichetti had promised to set up a meeting with Georgia Senator Herman Talmadge, an Atlanta Congressman Fowler, and a U.S. Deputy Immigration Commissioner Mario Noto. The meetings were to be held in this beautiful Georgetown townhouse that the FBI had long used for sting operations, which Mel didn't like also. He was like, you're going to use this same house for 2 different sting operations? That's kind of like wacky.
Yeah, I'm shocked that they even thought that would be a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird, but like they did, and it somehow didn't bite them in the butt, but neither here nor there. However, though, as the day of the meetings approached, Crichton and Erichetti relayed that the senator and the congressman, both from Georgia, right, had canceled out. The excuse for Senator Talmadge was that it was too risky of a business after his recent Senate censure.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. The excuse for Fowler, though, was that there had been a death in the family. But nonetheless, Crichton and Erichetti still wanted to bring Mario Noto in. However, they did not bring Mario Noto to the meeting, and instead brought in one of Crichton's law partners, Robert Cook, who posed as the Deputy Immigration Commissioner.
Oh.
Amoroso, though, immediately knew that Noto was not who he said he was because he had seen pictures of the real Noto before the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing his research.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the FBI, okay? Here is the exchange. If Amoroso wasn't already tipped off enough, here's the rest of the exchange. Do you have a card, Commissioner? The fake Noto replied that he rarely left his office and had no reason to carry business cards. Mayor, let me see you outside for a minute. After the two left the room, Mel then asked the quote-unquote commissioner, I didn't get your name. Cook replied, Nopo.
Oh,
Nopo. The wrong name.
oh my gosh.
Amateurs.
Amateur hour.
Yeah. So outside, Amoroso treaded lightly, not wanting to upset the mayor and lose all of his connections. The mayor had said earlier that he didn't know the commissioner personally and that he had been recommended by a friend. So Amoroso said, so how well do you know this friend? The mayor said only casually, so Amoroso jumped on that moment and whispered in Erinchetti's ear that the man inside was an imposter and that he and the mayor's friend could be FBI agents sent to trap him.
Oh my gosh. Genius.
Yeah. The mayor, a good actor in his own right, feigned surprise, turned red and said, I've been jackpotted. Amoroso then told Erichetti to tell the man inside that there had been a misunderstanding and to drop the man back off at the block where they picked him up. The mayor complied and left with Cook. Erichetti did travel to Florida the next day to also have some meetings with Mel and Amoroso, but the damage was done. Erichetti was embarrassed because he knew that he had been found out, but he was also exhausted and annoyed by the fact that Amoroso and Mel couldn't produce the big bucks at the end of the day. So from then on, Howard Crichton really became the main middleman for the members of Congress that Abscam targeted. He felt that Abscam was legit, ironically, after the botched meeting with Cook. The fact that Amoroso had suggested that Cook was an FBI agent meant to Crichton that he was dealing with the real deal.
I see the logic, I guess.
Yeah. So while Crichton boasted about his contacts to really high-ranking members of Congress, most of these did not pan out. And again, like I said, not every name that surfaced was investigated. The other thing with Crichton that unnerved Mel was his connection to the mob. Mel worried that in scamming Crichton, he was scamming the mob, which, I don't know if you ever tried to scam the mob, but I haven't. But it doesn't seem like it would paint a pretty rosy outcome.
No, the mob are the last people I would want to scam.
Yeah. That seems like your body would be in Lake Tahoe.
Absolutely.
No, not Lake Tahoe.
I mean, just the bottom of a lake.
What's the one? What's the one outside of Las Vegas?
Lake Mead.
That's it, Lake Mead. Yes. Thank you. Sorry, Lake Tahoe to slander your name.
Yeah.
I'm obviously talking about Lake Mead. However, Crichton did, though, manage to produce several members, including the chairman of House Administration Committee and congressman from New Jersey, Frank Thompson. Born in New Jersey in 1918, Thompson attended Wake Forest University and its law school. He served in the United States Navy during World War II before representing his state in the New York, I don't know why I keep wanting to say New York, sorry, New Jersey General Assembly from 1950 to 1954. He was first elected to the U.S. House of Representatives and in 1954, and by 1979, he was also a trustee of the Kennedy Center and a regent of the Smithsonian.
A real insider.
A real insider. So on October 9th, 1979, Crichton and Thompson showed up at the Georgetown Townhouse. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it's because it's town twice.
Yeah.
That's why I feel silly saying it. Anyways, they showed up to meet Mel and Agent Amoroso. However, the meeting was not as clear-cut as the earlier ones with the other members of Congress. Like usual, Amoroso asked if Thompson would introduce a bill to give Arabs refuge in the U.S. Thompson agreed, but said that the bill was not a sure guarantee for success. Amoroso replied, well, that's what the money is for. The congressman then said, I'm not looking for any money, and it depends on the circumstance. I mean, I'm not a communist, not a known criminal. And then he asked the origin of the two Arabs, and Crichton quickly volunteered one of the Emirates.
One of the Emirates.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So dare I say this is a congressman with integrity?
Let's keep going.
Okay.
Anyway, so then Mel took a stab. You see, Abdul married one of the kings or the sheikh's daughters and became an emir, all right? And they realized over there eventually that the guerrillas were going to take over. The Palestinian guerrillas, well, it's just a matter of time. And they want security. They're putting millions and millions of dollars in this country, all right? And they just want to know that they have the right people behind them when the time comes. Thompson then said he would welcome investment of the money into his district and suggested some firms and businesses owned by his friend. He also agreed to introducing a bill. Amoroso was about to offer payment again to the congressman when Crichton kicked him out of their table and the meeting ended without a bribe being passed. Soon after, though, Crichton came back to the townhouse furious and desperate. He was upset that the suitcase of cash was not given to him during the meeting and said that Mel had agreed that Crichton could take the cash and give it to the congressman in private. Mel, of course, denied this, and Amoroso wouldn't budge. He wanted Thompson to spell out why he was taking the money and what he would do for the emir. Finally, it was agreed that the money could get passed on to Crichton as long as Thompson was present and agreed that the money was being paid for his official acts. Crichton picked up Thompson from the Capitol and brought him back to the townhouse. This time around, the deal was sealed.
We were so close to having a good guy.
I know. Not too long after that meeting, Rep. Thompson arranged a meeting between Mel Amoroso and the congressman's friend from New York, Representative John Murphy. Representative Murphy was born on Staten Island in 1926 and spent his entire youth in New York. After graduating from West Point, he distinguished himself during the Korean War. In 1963, the people of New York elected him to the U.S. House of Representatives. And by the time of Operation Abscam, he had risen to the position of chairman of the House Committee on Merchant Marines and Fisheries.
They were all chairman of something.
I know. These are New Jersey and New York, man. And Philadelphia, I guess. Yeah. In their first meeting on October 20th, Murphy proved to be smarter than some of the other elected officials that the team had bribed before. The congressman refused to take the $50,000 bribe from Amoroso regarding the asylum issue and insisted that Crichton take the briefcase. Apparently, Murphy took around $10,000 from that lump sum for quote-unquote walking around money.
AKA my life savings.
Yeah,
but okay.
But cool.
Yeah.
The congressman then turned to the issue he really cared about, a lucrative shipping deal.
Not another deal.
Another deal. The idea, later communicated by Crichton, was for the Arabs to loan the money for the purchase of the company. Murphy, having a secret share in the company, himself would guide legislation through Congress to make the company profitable. And like the Abscam team had done before, Mel requested another meeting with Crichton and Murphy so that the congressman could provide assurances that he was going to keep up his side of the agreement. The FBI was pretty excited about this meeting, since Murphy was considered a quote-unquote biggie. They decided to cater the meeting to further impress the congressman, but the agent they entrusted to do this was what Mel considered a cheapskate. The final spread for the meeting at the townhouse was cheap deli meat, not even the good kind, Mel thought. Like he had served at that near disastrous Abdul meeting at the Hotel Plaza, or the Plaza Hotel. But immediately, the congressman knew something was up. Amoroso tried to press Murphy about the shipping deal, saying, "I was reluctant to give you the money because you were very Congressman Murphy. You didn't give me any money." Agent Amoroso, "Well, okay then." The congressman, I never received money from anyone and would not accept anything from you or Howard."
He knew what was up.
Yeah. So this one's kind of weird. Again, like, he did take money technically from Crichton before that they knew about. So it's just not as clear cut as the other ones, but the FBI still felt like they had sufficient evidence against him at the end of the day. But even if he had felt trapped, Congressman Murphy, along with Congressman Thompson, also brought in another member of Congress into the fold. Representative John Murtha of Pennsylvania.
The House is not being represented well in this episode.
No, they are not. So Representative Murtha, born in 1932, served in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. Following his service, he attended the University of Pittsburgh on the GI Bill, and then he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1974 after serving 4 years in the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives. During Operation Abscam, Murtha met with Mel and Amorosa at the townhouse in Washington, D.C. While he expressed a willingness to assist the Arabs, he stopped short of accepting any money. He only hinted that he might be open to receiving funds at a later date. Since no money was accepted on camera or directly from Weinberg or Amorosa, the FBI opted not to pursue further action against him.
Makes sense.
Yeah. However, Crichton was not the only person who brought in members of Congress to Mel and the FBI. Virginia salesman John Stowe had been a target of Mel in the early days of Abscam. One day, while Mel was stalling Stowe on another batch of certificates of deposit, Mel mentioned the Arabs and their desire to come live in the U.S. From there, Stowe offered to bring in a Congressman John Jenrette of South Carolina. Born in Horry County in 1936, Jenrette graduated from Wofford College in 1958 and earned his law degree from the University of South Carolina in 1962. He went on to serve as a city judge and city attorney in North Myrtle Beach, as well as a representative in the South Carolina House of Representatives. In 1972, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, where he quickly gained recognition as a rising star. His peers elected him as president of the congressional freshman class that same year. Although Jenrette's heavy drinking was widely known, and some of his infamous exploits only came to light after his arrest. For example, in an interview with Playboy magazine, his then-wife Rita disclosed, quote-unquote, that the two of them had had sex on the steps of the Capitol building during a break during a late-night session of Congress.
Okay, I'd actually heard of this before,
Yeah?
and that is absolutely on my list.
That is one we definitely need to cover.
We have to cover it.
Now, in late 1979, Jenrette was also under investigation by the Justice Department about a South Carolina real estate deal and tampering with a federal grand jury. Not great. Jenrette said he wanted to take money from the Abdul Yazir Fund, but wanted to wait until he had a meeting with the U.S. Attorney General to see if they would drop the case against him. During the meeting, Jenrette is famous for saying the following: "I've got larceny in my blood. I take it in a goddamn minute."
I love that he's waiting to commit another crime until he sees if he's going to be charged for his previous crimes.
Exactly. He's a criminal in moderation, okay?
Mm-hmm. One crime at a time.
We're not binge criminaling.
You're not
new verb.
Committing binge crimes.
Yeah, not committing binge crimes. So after a supposedly positive meeting with the AG, Jenrette called and sent Stowe to the D.C. townhouse to collect the bribe. Later on a phone call, Jenrette confirmed that he had in fact received the bribe. Another middleman of note was Joe Silvestri. He had originally been brought to Mel by Mayor Ericetti before he stopped coming around. Silvestri's contacts did not totally pan out, but he did set up some notable meetings between elected officials and Mel and Amoroso. First was State Senator Joe Maressa of New Jersey, who took a $25,000 bribe from Mel and Agent Amoroso under the promise that he would be hired as a lawyer at Abdul's eventual Atlantic City casino. Second was Congressman Ed Patton of New Jersey. When he was offered a bribe, he kept changing the subject and rambling. He later relayed that he thought Mel and Amoroso were part of the mafia. Third was Senator Larry Pressler of South Dakota, who took a meeting with Mel and Amoroso at the D.C. townhouse. Amoroso offered Senator Presley $50,000 as a quote-unquote campaign contribution in exchange for his assistance with the residency asylum bill. Pressler responded, saying that he would not make any guarantees, as he was just one member of the Senate and passing a bill would require a majority. Mel thought that Pressler was implying that he wanted the money, but solely on trust. This, of course, was a little different from the story that Senator Pressler would later tell in the Washington Post. In his version, he firmly rejected the money and stormed out of the meeting, making it clear that their offer was illegal.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So the last member of Congress who would take a bribe in the Abscam operation was U.S. Representative Richard Kelly, a Republican from Florida. This is our first Republican.
Of course they're from Florida.
And of course, so Representative Kelly was born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice.
In 1924. And he earned his law degree from Vanderbilt College of Law in 1949 and served in the Marine Corps during and shortly after before World War II. After being admitted to the Florida bar in 1952, he worked as a senior assistant to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida for 3 years. He then served as a Sixth Circuit judge in Florida before being elected to the House of Representatives in 1974. In a full circle moment, Kelly was actually brought to Mel by the man who had kind of started it all, Bill Rosenberg.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, the guy who had brought Mel Mayor Ericetti.
Yeah, when they were still going after the smaller fish.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I like whistle when I said fish? I swear I didn't lose a tooth.
Yeah. So in January of 1980, Rosenberg set up a meeting with Representative Kelly, which initially followed the same pattern as the others, with Amoroso talking to the congressman separately, while Mel entertained Rosenberg, Florida mobster Gino Cazillo, and another associate, Stanley Wise. So all three of these guys are in the room while Amoroso is talking to Kelly. So in the meeting with Amoroso, Kelly seemed to agree to the conditions of the bribe, but then suddenly excused himself to go talk to Cuozzo out in the hallway. Amoroso thought he had lost the congressman. But then Kelly came back in the room and said, "Very good arrangement. I'm glad to be associated with you. Let's do it." Amoroso looked shocked. And then Kelly continued, "Don't stumble around. Jump in here and get it, the money." He's talking about the money. As Amoroso reached into the drawer and handed Kelly $25,000, the congressman added, "I'm so damned poor, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, if I told you how poor I was, you'd cry. I mean, tears would roll down your eyes." He then proceeded to stuff the bills in all of his pockets.
Oh my gosh.
And Amoroso's like, what is happening? And then it dawned on him that Kelly was intending to cut his middleman out of the deal. He was going to tell them that he hadn't taken it, while yet his pockets are padded with this cash.
With $25,000 in cash.
Yeah, So this meeting happened in January of 1980. Again, this is the last weeks of Abscam and the operation's final high-profile bust. However, during this last month as well, the greater Abscam team was successful in bribing Philadelphia City Councilman George Schwartz, as well as Councilman Harry Giannotti and Louis Johansson, who I'd mentioned two of those before. So the bribes had to do with their help on a planned hotel venture in Philadelphia that Abdul Enterprises and the company were working on. Johansson took $25,000, Schwartz took $30,000, and Giannotti took $10,000.
If I'm going to accept a bribe, it's got to be more than $10,000.
It's got to be huge. Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, if I'm putting my life, my career on the line, come on now.
For $10,000, come on.
$10,000 is my life savings.
Acting like I'm in a position to turn down $10,000.
as if I got big bucks in the bank right now. Yeah. $10,000 would probably change my life.
Anyway, subscribe, please. So we can buy stocks.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah. All I want to do is be able to buy stocks. I'll become a day trader. Maybe in my future I'll become a day trader.
I love it. A day trader and a crime podcaster with $10,000 to her name.
Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got. Now, by the end of January of 1980, Abscam had run its course. I kind of talked about this a little bit. But Mel and the team were unable to keep stalling folks on the millions of dollars that they had agreed upon to dole out on behalf of the Yazir Abdul accounts. But to close things out, the FBI wanted one series of meetings to seal the fate of some of the middlemen that they had been working with. So Mel called up Crichton, Rosenberg, and Stanley Wise to set up a meeting on Saturday, February 2nd, 1980, at the Hilton at the JFK airport.
Always at a hotel at the Kennedy airport.
We love the best deals happen there, apparently. So Mel had teased that the meetings with Omarosa would result in a handover of cold, hard cash and a new introduction to another Arab businessman. First was Howard Crichton. Omarosa proved him that this new sheik wanted Crichton to tell him everything that he had done from Yazir. Crichton opened up like a flood. Then there was a knock at the door. And to Crichton's surprise, it was not an Arab businessman, but an FBI agent who identified himself as an FBI agent. Rosenberg was also shocked at his meeting. Stanley Weiss was a little bit different, though. He refused to pay back the $50 in cash linking him to the Kelly payoff.
You said $50.
Sorry, $50,000. He refused to pay that money back and then contended that it was his finder's fee. But his lawyer did eventually convince him to give it back. While all these meetings went down at the Kennedy airport, FBI agents were knocking on the doors of the targets from New York to Florida. The jig was up. Almost immediately, the press took hold of the story, making Abscam a household name. With this came plenty of criticism and accusations that the sting operation was illegal entrapment. There was also this idea that Operation Abscam raised other legal issues like due process, separation of powers, and the freedom of speech or debate clause. I think I said freedom of speech. I just meant like the speech and debate clause. I'm just going to say that one more time. Sorry. There was also this idea that Operation Abscam raised other legal issues like due process, separation of powers, and the speech and debate clause. These items were generally the core defense of those charged, and Mel, as star witness, was the main target. The majority of judges uphold jury convictions and rejected claims of entrapment. However, they cautioned that the FBI's actions came way too close to crossing the line and emphasized the need for a stricter oversight in future undercover operations. But at the end of the day, 7 members of Congress were convicted of bribery and conspiracy. They included Senator Harrison A. Williams, Representative Frank Thompson, Representative John Jenrette, Representative Raymond Lederer, Representative Michael Myers, Representative John Murphy, and Representative Richard Kelly, the only Republican. And, for what it's worth, Rep. Murtha, who's the one who didn't take the bribe, but did have the meeting at the townhouse, agreed to testify for the government.
Good for him.
Mm-hmm. And in addition, 5 other government officials were also convicted, including Mayor of Camden, New Jersey, Mayor Aaron Shetty, of course, Philadelphia City Council President George Schwartz, Philadelphia City Councilman Harry Gennady, Philadelphia City Councilman Louis Johansson, and an inspector from the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service, Alexandro Jr. Middlemen like Rosenberg, Crichton, Silvestri, and Alexander Feinberg were also convicted. New Jersey Casino Control Commissioner, Vice Chair Kenneth MacDonald, who you might remember, was also indicted but died in 1982 before the resulting case was still pending when he died. And George Katz, the New York Jersey garbage contractor, also died before he could answer to the law. New Jersey State Senator Joseph Marassa, who took a $10,000 bribe, later told folks that he had, quote-unquote, felt like it would be patriotic to take some of this OPEC oil money and get it back to the United States.
Freedom dollars.
Yeah. Notably, he was not prosecuted for this, but he did end up not running for re-election.
Smart.
Yeah. Rep. Patton, who did not take a bribe but also had a meeting with the Abscam team, decided not to run for re-election. And Senator Presley, who again did not take a bribe and said he stormed out of the office like this is so illegal and stuff, he would actually serve until 1997.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Flash forward to 2013, just a small little aside, the story of Abscam would come to Hollywood in the movie American Hustle. And while Hollywood did add an unrealistic amount of cleavage, chest hair, and drugs, the gist of the story remains. The FBI created a successful, multi-year sting operation that unrooted white-collar crime and political corruption with the help of a lifelong conman.
What a story.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't bulldoze you with the amount of names I had.
No, I feel like I'm excited for this episode to come out so I can listen to it again and like really absorb all of the information. But I think it's incredible that they were able to get so many members of Congress convicted. That's not an easy task.
No, it's not. And again, I think there is like the argument of maybe it was on the border of, sorry, I just hit my laptop. It might have been on the border of entrapment.
Yeah.
This would not happen today. I think it's fair to say that this kind of thing would not happen again today. And definitely not to the extent of like months, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think there are a lot more guardrails up today, but it is just a fascinating time capsule of this like late 70s, early 80s, just kind of,
And with instant transfers and crypto and just the internet in general, it's so much easier to look people up to get money quickly. I don't think they could get away with this. I see the entrapment argument, but these are also well-educated men in a position of power who knew what they were doing.
You shouldn't even be close to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you should,
So, like, I see it.
You shouldn't even be taken like that. Yeah.
But come on.
Yeah,
like, they knew what they were doing.
Agree. And that's the case of Abscam, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
You did a great job telling us the story.
Thank you. I hope.
And now we need to go watch American Hustle.
Definitely.
I've never seen it, actually. So that'll be my homework.
I still haven't seen it yet. I wanted to wait till after I finish this case to go watch it. Same thing with Chappaquiddick. I still haven't watched the movie Chappaquiddick.
Okay, so we need to have a Crime in Congress movie night.
I think we do. I think we definitely do.
Okay, let's go do that right now.
Bye.
Bye.
You want to gavel us out?
Yes, I do.